Welcome in, LSU fans. It's something you've been probably waiting on. The conversation between me, Blake Ruffino of AYS Sports, talking a little bit about what's happening during a bye week, Blake. I mean, do we expect this much fanfare around a bye week in between Ole Miss and South Carolina in the preseason? I did not, but it's good. It's good content that we both need.
Yeah, I did not think that we would get this much attention during a bye week. I thought this was going to be kind of more of an off week. And then, hey, I got sent a text message by my good buddy Lyle of people today on y'all's board going at it in reference to, he says we don't prepare good. And I'm like, and so listen, I think everybody's high strung just based off of all the things, and we don't have to get into the details, Bryce, but just all the things that are happening. And I think that everybody's like, oh, well, man, we could lose to Alabama. We could lose to Oklahoma. We could lose next week to South Carolina. And I think the fear of the unknown of what this offense could look like moving forward is really what is happening here more than anything else.
So let's start. Blake, you texted me this morning that I've nearly made you spit your coffee out with what I said yesterday. So we don't have to go through the entire timeline of kind of how the mixing and matching of comments have gone from Brian Kelly. But I guess let's just what do you feel like you have learned this week? I don't feel like I've learned necessarily anything in terms of what the status of Garrett Nussmeier is. What do you feel like you have learned since, I guess, not yesterday, but Saturday afternoon when Brian Kelly spoke to the media postgame?
That there's a separation between the camp of Nussmeier and the camp of Kelly. Because you can't have – now, Bryce, there's twofold to this, right? Like, I feel as if that Brian Kelly is being told by doctors – he's not one, by the way. I think that's getting, like, completely missed, and people throw in, like, oh, well, the Greg Brooks incident, now they're messing something else up. And I'm like, he's not a doctor. So we need to go ahead and understand that right now. But then, Bryson, why is he playing? You mean to tell me that he's not good enough to go, which maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I don't know. And then he's got, let's just call it what it is, what the rumor was, an oblique tear, which what everybody said it was, and that he's out there playing. Bryce, you can barely breathe, much less throw a football. So then I start asking myself, is it mechanical? And then I start asking myself other questions. What I just feel like is that they feel that Garrett feels like he's hurt and he's doing everything he can. And I don't know if Brian Kelly feels as if that they're doing everything humanly possible to be good. And so that's where what I feel like I've learned. I would kind of turn the question on you. I mean, do you feel the same? Because I feel like there's disconnection all over the place offensively, because that's just how I feel.
Blake, when I sat in front of Brian Kelly and he looked at the media on Saturday in the depths of hell in that god-awful room they had us in Oxford, when I sat in front of him and he said, all I can tell you is he's healthy. And then 10 minutes later, Garrett Nussmeier refuses to answer the question, which I want to say this. I'm not trying to put anybody on blast. That's not the point of what having you on today is, or just in terms of how we go about doing this content. When you don't address things, that's how stuff gets started. You and I talked about this on the phone yesterday. That's how we get into these conversations. But let's just call a spade here. I'll say it so you don't have to get in trouble. When you both have the same agent, and you see some of the social media rumors that are taking place. I'm not confirming any of that. I'm just telling you that's how stuff happens when you have situations like this. So that to me was the first sign of they're not on the same page. Whatever you want to get into the nitty-gritty of and what really is happening, there's some type of disconnect between player and coach, players' camp and coaching staff that isn't making sense. It doesn't iron itself out.
Well, and Bryce, he answered that question perfectly, because it gave everybody like, well, Garrett kind of saying he ain't good. So then, then it's like, all right, well, he's trying to – it felt like to me when I went back and watched the content, because I'm live when they're doing these interviews, so I don't get to see them. So I go back and watch it, and the first thought I had was, oh, he's telling GMs around the country and around the NFL, hey, dog, I'm playing and I'm not fine. That's how I read it. And I'm like, okay – because, Bryce, if he is healthy and he confirms to Brian Kelly's point, hey, guys, BK's right, I'm good to go, I'm healthy, then every GM in the country says, well, then we ain't taking you in the first couple of rounds because you're playing horribly. Let's call it what it is.
He's
so
bad.
Then he answers it that way to say, no, I'm not okay, because now they're playing chess. And so that's the part of it where I'm saying to myself, if you're Trace Armstrong, their agent, Brian Kelly's made you $100 million. Sorry. I mean, like, at some point you got to do what's best for the guy that's leading this ship. And so then you just get to a situation where Garrett's answer was perfect for him, because if I'm a GM, I'm saying, all right, well, is he really hurt? Would Brian Kelly really tell me the truth? Would Trace Armstrong really tell me the truth? I would love to be on fly on the wall when Trace Armstrong picks up the phone and asks Brian Kelly what's up with Garrett Nussmeier. I would pay all the money in the world to find out what those conversations, if any, are like. And then, Bryce, you got to ask this, which brings up the other part of this. Does he get paid for playing games? And if he does, then we have to have a whole nother conversation of, all right, dog, then you got to sit. Like, this isn't a game anymore. So those are all the contexts that I'm asking, and literally before I came on here, got in trouble for.
Well, look, it's fair to say, and I'll say this too. I mean, I said this on the show last night that Matthew Beeren and I did with the Bengal Tiger. You can go check out those thoughts over there. But I said, like, I've got a 1-year-old, right? And you've got young kids. My 1-year-old's getting to the point, she's 15, almost 16 months old. She knows when she does something wrong and tries to pass it off as nobody sees it. This is what this feels like. It feels like a kid trying to act like they didn't do something or that nobody's seeing what they're doing. Blake, they're on national TV 5 times already, and it's out there. The data points are out there. Regardless of how you feel about the person, this is not a take on the human being. He has objectively been bad. Like, he's just objectively been bad this year. So I guess with what we're looking at and this data, the sample size, what have I learned? There's a disconnect. Garrett Nussmeier, I mean, I hope, for the sake of his draft stock, I hope that he's hurt. Like, I mean, that's not a crazy thing to say, because this is weird. This doesn't make any sense of what we're seeing, because, look, man, I mean, I don't know if you've done this, but you kind of go back and look, like, who are some of the quarterbacks whose draft stock just tanked because they came back and they weren't hurt, but something just went crazy wrong? Like, I mean, that you start to have that conversation if this lingers.
One of Brian Kelly's former quarterbacks, Deshaun Kaiser. I mean, this has happened to Brian Kelly before, where an injury was, I don't know if it was faked, but it wound up being, Bryce, with all due respect to Brian Kelly, was faked. I mean, there was, him.
Yeah. It takes me into the second topic, and man, I battled with this. I don't know. I didn't get a chance to watch your live post-game show in this, and I don't know if you had thoughts on this. So the next question I have is, what has to happen for Michael Van Beeren to have a shot? Because in last night's press conference, and I wrote about this today, Brian Kelly straight up told us that there are packages for Michael Van Beeren in short yardage situations, but that he will not take Garrett Nussmeier out of the game in those situations. Blake, I sit in the camp of that Michael Van Beeren is currently at 100% health for both guys, the better option right now in those situations. So if you're not willing to do that, what has to happen for him to see the field in some type of capacity other than just maybe 1 or 2 plays here? Because what frustrates me, Blake, is that Saturday was a winnable game. Not must win, not whatever you want to call it. It's not you're out of the whole thing. You could have won that game despite how poor your play was on offense. What has to happen, in your opinion, for Michael Van Beeren to see legitimate snaps? Because the question becomes, is he here to hang out and develop, or is he here to play? And I tweeted about this, a backdoor back office deal in the offseason should be thrown out the window if it comes at the cost of what you have going on in season.
Yeah, I mean, I've saw the debate, because it came up on our show that you had today talking about the post game, was, do you burn Michael Van Buren's red shirt? And I'm like, does the dude not want to play? Because with all due respect, the legacy that you could build yourself of you going out there and spending $20 million to build this roster, even though you brought back a 5th-year senior quarterback, something happened to him. Do you think Tom Brady, like everybody asked, hey, Tom, are you prepared to go in for New England that Bledsoe went out? You know, like, are you ready? No one asked those questions. You got to seize those moments. I don't think Michael Van Buren's doing that. He's been in this exact situation before.
Yep.
Literally
same situation.
Literally the same situation. The only difference is, well, you spent $20 million and you might have a playoff defense. So I sit there, Bryce. This is how I view it. And again, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. I think his mechanics are off. So which tells me I don't know of the work that Garrett did in the offseason. I know you're seeing that. He can't throw the ball 35 yards down the field, whether he's hurt or not, injured or not. Those are two different words. Then what are you going to do when Chris Hilton keeps getting pass interferences and beating dudes off the line of scrimmage? At this point, the only thing that I can muster in my brain, did he have a hell of a week this week? Because if he had a hell of a week this week and players like, let's just say Beeren Brown, Chris Hilton, Trey'Dez Green, whoever it may be is like, hey, man, I mean, this dude's getting me the ball. Like he's pushing the ball down the field. You can't wait for another loss until you make that move. So do you get 2 series, 3 series, and Garrett and this offense can't move the ball, and then you make a move? You know, I don't know. And listen, I do think Garrett deserves every single chance that he can get. Yeah. And I think that for what it's worth, you gave it to him. Bryce, we did the math last night. At minimum, you're 8 weeks into this. Today, you're 8 weeks into a torso strain because I am not buying that the knee, I'm not buying it one bit that the pitch count was the knee issue when he doesn't have a brace on literally 3 days after we went back out there on a Saturday. I'm not buying that. It's okay. The injury really wasn't the knee. The real injury was the oblique or torso, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I legitimately, is there staff turnover about, no, he's not ready, we're going to lose, we can manage the game with Garrett better than what we do with Van Buren? That's the only thing in my mind is that they think that they can manage the game and outsmart the room with Garrett more than what Michael Van Buren, who might not know everything, can do for him. That's the only logic that my brain will come to. But the problem is you can't run the football. And so
the problem is I don't think that's true, just objectively. I don't think you can outsmart with Garrett Nussmeier at quarterback.
You can't.
Right, in the current state.
You know why? The Florida interception is god-awful. It's the worst. It is god-awful. It's just as bad as the Ole Miss interception when you're throwing the ball into triple coverage. Now, Bryce, I don't do this. I started asking questions that people started getting uncomfortable with this week. Is Bauer Sharp the first read? Because Bauer Sharp was the first read against Clemson, and you confirmed it in your press conference after. You said you changed the progressions. All right. Did you change them now? So I get to a situation where I just ask the simple question, when is the decision-making going to get better? If you have a torso injury, you're hurt. I think the biggest thing for me is how has that changed his decision-making? I don't know if it has, and I don't know if Van Buren's can be much worse. I'm not saying it can't be because anything can happen.
Anything can happen, yeah.
But can it be worse than throwing the ball like the interception versus Florida and throwing the ball into triple coverage? Somebody's got to tell me that I mean, Garrett's getting bailed out by people thinking he's injured. If he's out there, Bryce, then he's got to make these throws. He can't make those bad decisions. And I'm like, I'm seeing you throw the ball into triple coverage, and then the decision with Florida, that ain't got nothing to do with your torso. Sorry, it doesn't. You got to make a better decision because, Bryce, what happens if you go in and score? What happens if you get a field goal there? By the way, you're a field goal away at the end of the game to win the ball game if you just simply kick a field goal there. So I don't know, man. I don't know.
You bring up a great point, and it's something I've tried to, I don't want to say dance around, but I do think that there is some legitimacy to this claim, and you can tell me what you think. You know, when you're in a situation like Garrett Nussmeier is, and before Brian Kelly made the public announcement, I guess it was the Florida week, or maybe whatever week it was, that he was hurt. Was that Southeastern? I mean, I feel like the timeline's absolutely just screwed up at this point. So when that public announcement comes out, hey, he's dealing with something, a lot of people are like, oh, okay, well, all right, it makes sense. But you go back and look at some of the decision making, like you mentioned. I'm not trying to take away the blame from Garrett Nussmeier, but I think a lot of factors have contributed to, and I'll say the phrase, him being a little bit weak-minded right now in terms of where he is on the field and in the game atmosphere. You do not trust your offensive line, even though they've been better at pass blocking than they have run blocking, which isn't saying much, but you don't trust them. So your mental clock is screwed already. Then you're hurt, so you don't trust yourself. I think, Blake, the third piece of it is he really doesn't trust what he sees. And you and I have talked and texted about this. There are the game against Southeastern that was the good one. He had some open opportunities to hit. The game against Florida were some good ones. So I'm not trying to take blame away from him. I think he is allowed his lack of trust in the offensive line and his lack of trust of his body, both the physical and the mental, to take over. And it's compounded a lot of these errors where it's much more than just I'm hurt. Is that crazy, or what do you think?
No, I don't. I mean, it's not going to get us any friends. I mean, at least I'm not looking for friends. But
I'm good. Yeah, I'm
I'm good. My MySpace is completely full at the current moment. Thank you. But it just gets to a part where, okay, you're right. But at what point do you get to a situation? Next week, Bryce, we're 19 games into Garrett Nussmeier as your starter and Joe Sloan the play caller. When has it ever been good? And I mean, like, at what point do you know, hey, they dropped 8? I mean, they dropped 8. Brian Kelly's not wrong. PFF brought this up. They dropped 8 87% of the time. 87%. And I just wonder, like, and to me, I think that the interception from Ole Miss is a clear-out route. You know how I know? Xavion's not looking. Beeren's not looking, right? Like nobody's looking. Yeah. So I'm saying, okay, the only person looking back at the quarterback is Bauer. And so if you can run, like, for example, against Southeastern, and maybe he tweaked it, or as an example, you can get flushed out right and run, I still don't excuse the Florida interception. By the way, if they had any pulse on that interception and they score, it's a 1-score ball game.
Yep.
And so that's the part where, listen, everybody understands. Like, I think people want to, and I'm going to use your word, like, tiptoe around it because he's hurt, and I get that. But we got to separate, okay, this is what he looks like hurt. Then if that is it, then he can't make these X, Y, and Z decisions. Because if you make X, Y, and Z decisions, last week is going to happen. Yeah. It's just going to. By the way, hey, if you're Brian Kelly, you have a green dot on the side of your button. Hey, our defense has been on the field for 45 plays. Why don't you each start checking this thing down a little bit? I mean, what is the best thing to call when they drop 8? It's not throwing to a double post. I mean, it's just not. I mean, Bryce, we're not people think like people in the media are idiots. Don't throw a double post into drop 8. And so I hate to harp on that, but it also comes down to a simple thing. Like, for example, you threw in the double coverage twice on Aaron Anderson. One of them got him hurt. Yep. I mean, Brian Kelly said yesterday, his neck, his back, his booty is cracked. Everything's aching. And so it's just like, man, then they don't start trusting him. Yeah. And that's the part where I'm asking myself, like, all right, the injury's one thing. We all understand it. But at what point do you look to try to find something else? Because here's the thing that people don't want to defend Sloan on. Carter does a film breakdown. Aaron Murray did a film breakdown. All these people do film breakdowns. Okay, well, I take still shots on our projector right here and post them. Bryce, we posted one on Monday. I don't like doing this because when you do it, people always look at the negative. They never look at the positive of it. That's why I stopped 3 years ago in doing them. We sit here in the office and go through a projector, and we go through a coach's copy or what people call the all 22. There's way too much stuff open. It's inexcusable. And so that's where, if you're actually watching it and it being that inexcusable, that's where I'm like, okay, we got to make a move here because so many, it would be one thing if last year it wasn't the same issue. You should have gone into, and I'm sorry I'm long-winded on it, but you should have gone into the season already knowing those decisions. right?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
oh yeah,
so that's the part of, okay, well, you don't even know the decisions. So mentally, you're in a space where you feel like you got to do everything and you're not supposed to. You're just not supposed to. So that's where I am.
yeah. Well, I like what you said. I mean, we're saying the quiet part out loud, and I think people feel like we're attacking Nussmeier in this. No, because there's data points to show. Like we're not going to get on here. We're not reckless with the takes that we're trying to make here, but there's validity to the fact that decision making hasn't been good in a while or ever. I mean, you could say that. I mean, it hasn't been a strong suit.
20 turnovers in 10 SEC games. Hold on. Hold on. He's got 20 turnovers in 10 SEC starts. In 13 SEC games, okay, you're getting to a part where he's almost at 25 because you got to go back to Georgia where he threw 2 picks and he had a fumble. You got to go back to Bama. You got to go back to these certain games. This is not just a 2-year window. Like I remember a kid who threw an interception in a pick 6 versus Southern. Okay, I remember all of those games in reference to show me where the great decision making outside of Clemson when he had 3 weeks. Bryce, they prepared. Here's the thing. They prepared him 3 weeks in advance to know the decisions on what to do for Clemson. Brian Kelly's own words at a press conference, not mine.
Yep.
So you get to a situation where I'm not trying to come down on him. When you have 20 turnovers in 10 SEC starts, hello? And Bryce, I really feel like people think I'm crazy. And I know I'm a little crazy, but I feel like I'm starting to lose my godforsaken mind here about this, about Blake's a crazy lunatic. Okay, how is me saying having 2 turnovers per game in the SEC me being a lunatic?
Well, it's because people. That's a whole different discussion. It's because people don't want to hear that. I mean, that's what that is. No, you're not. No, I mean, you've got to the point where you have to ask: is this just who he is? Is that the type of player? And I'm not saying that's all for. It's just you can't make something be something that it isn't, and maybe he just is that. I guess the injury for me is like, I've always thought he's a gunslinger in that term. I know people don't love it. Right now, you're not seeing any of it because of the injury. He really can't sling it or whatever. So
last year's Nuss hits Garrett Nussmeier, hits Chris Hilton in the end zone.
Oh, it's a touchdown. We don't think twice about it.
We don't have these conversations.
Very true. Very true. Well, the last thing we're going to talk about here, and it's a conversation that I think I have been unable to answer. I've been on like 3 or 4 radio shows this week. I get the question. I don't know how to answer this. Mm-hmm. I saw you having some dialogue with some fans on social media, so I did want to you have great dialogue, by the way, with fans on social media. And I wanted to ask this because I've got a question.
Because I just asked questions.
So what happens next? Like, you can't run the ball. I know people saying, like, a lot of fans like, you don't choose to run the ball. Okay, there's validity towards that. I'll give you that. But you can't. You haven't been able to do it in 4 years since Brian Kelly's been here. So outside of Jaden Daniels, you have no run game. Your offensive line, this is what I've said. The problems outside of Garrett Nussmeier's health are off-season issues that have crept in season. You didn't go out and get a right tackle because you thought Weston Davis would be your option. Objectively, he has been the worst offensive lineman on your team and one of the worst, if not the worst player per PFF on your team. I think it's like a 45 PFF grade. So you have that. Your offensive line isn't a strong suit for you. I'm going to give, and I don't know if this is, maybe I'm being too nice, I'm giving Nick Anderson and Chris Hilton to an extent, but really more of Anderson, a grade of incomplete because you don't have a downfield passing game for them to flourish in.
Right.
Caden Durham's been hurt. Jawan Johnson is slotted in as running back 2. Harlan Berry's there. Caleb Jackson's a non-factor. All of these type of things we're talking about. So what can you fix? Like to me, I sit here and you're not like, they're not going to magically just be able to run for like 175 next week against South Carolina or 2. Like that's not happening. If it does, Blake, then maybe you and I should go play the lottery. So what can actually be fixed outside of Nuss's health? This just might be who you are, and you're going to have to – your defense is going to play lights out for you to have a chance.
First thing I'm doing is stop going out of 12 personnel.
Okay.
Completely stop going out of 12 personnel because let's take everybody out of the box completely. Because then it starts becoming a numbers game and finding a crease. I'm putting Chris Hilton on the field, and I'm putting Xavier Thomas at running back. Per PFF, and we talked about this on Tuesday, nobody has more of a rushing explosiveness rate from a running back position more than him the last 2 seasons for LSU. Doesn't exist. Okay? I'm giving him looks at running back. I don't care if you like it or don't like it.
Yeah.
Second thing I'm doing, or third thing I'm doing, whatever order I'm in, I'm putting Karius Kern at left guard. I mean, like, at what point I can deal. Matthew Bruin's going to literally pull all of his beer hair out, but stay with me. I'm literally going to continue to roll with Weston Davis because I know the effort's there. I think he'll fit. I'm going to stay with him for a little bit longer. Karius Kern's not a right tackle, and so that's why he doesn't go there. He is a guard. When you have a tackle that literally in the third quarter on your longest run picked up a defensive end at 265 pounds and pancaked him, he is a guard. I'm sorry to tell everybody that. I'm sorry to tell Brad Davis that. Put him at left guard. That high ankle sprain for Paul Mabinga might need to go a little bit longer than maybe next week. I got to be real with you. I am telling Josh Thompson he's got one more game.
He can, on the offensive line in total.
On the offensive line in general. Bryce, I have 14 pictures on this phone that I've shown on my podcast. He doesn't know how to pick up a stunt. Yeah. Everybody was blaming Weston Davis. Actually, I'm not going to pull it up, but if you need it, I'll send it to you. Everybody blamed Weston Davis. It's not Weston. Weston's traveling in reference to a stunt that Thompson does not know how to pick up. I'm telling you, it's not. It legitimately is. Everybody is pointing. Now, I'll give Weston this. If somebody's got speed on him, he's cooked. He's cooked. Okay, I'm not accusing him of any wrongdoing. However, you got a fifth-year senior at guard, and he doesn't know how to pick up a simple twist. So I'm telling him, hey, buddy, we're going to start figuring some stuff out. What's up with Solomon Thomas? Because I'm going to start pulling these dudes. I mean, he broke an ankle. All right, well, sounds good. It's been 9 weeks. It's been 9 weeks. Is he out at practice? Is he not out at practice? What is the status of Solomon Thomas? And I'm telling everybody this week, and the last thing, everybody's job is up for grab. The only person I'm telling their job is not up for grab is probably Aaron Anderson and Braylon Moore. Hey, y'all out. Everybody else in. Go play. What's up? By the way, when's the last time LSU threw a hitch route to a 6'4" receiver? Oh, wait, they haven't. You went – Nick Anderson had the most ridiculous catch that you've had all year, and then you only went back to him one time when he was open all day when you put him in. I mean, Bryce, I'm not trying to be rude, but, I mean, he caught a 21-yard in route in the fourth quarter. They ran the same dagger play, the same exact one the next play, and he checked it down, and he had nobody around him. So I'm telling everybody, your jobs are up for grabs. Now, none of what I'm saying is going to come to pass, maybe other than Karius Kern, but what else are you going to do?
I don't free agency, you can't do anything else.
You can't do anything else. And then lastly, if you go 3 series with Garrett and you don't score a point, I mean, Bryce, I'm pulling him. I hate to say it like that, but I'm pulling him.
Well, I say this to wrap up what you just said. The Karius Kern thing, you played offensive line. Was not my forte. I mean, I was a pulling guard at the single A level in Georgia, but that was not my forte. I wasn't my choice by any means. I will say this. To me, the easiest thing for a young freshman to do is to know he can put his hand in the dirt and run somebody over. Karius Kern can do that. When Kern got beat, I kept telling people in the press box in Oxford, I said, I'd rather see him get beat because he's so dadgum strong that you cannot run through him. Even he's 18 years old. So you're going to have to go around him, which you can run through some of these other guys. The other part of what you're talking about with Nussmeier is I keep hearing this, and this is from some LSU media too. Well, if you take Van Buren out, the accuracy in the downfield passing game, well, who cares? You don't have a downfield passing game. You're acting as if people are acting as if you're taking Nussmeier out at 100%. You're not. Yeah, you're taking him out at whatever you want to call it, as an ineffective person to run the offense. So for Van Buren, God, we could go longer, but I think you're running an offense that isn't even tailored to what you have at quarterback.
Why are you running an RPO without the main R?
You're taking 3 options and you're going down to 1.5.
Essentially,
if not one.
Really one. Clemson didn't respect one time when you ran an RPO, not once.
No, and I wouldn't. What would you? I mean, I just wouldn't. I wouldn't.
I mean, so here's the picture that I was telling you about with Thompson. So you have right here Weston Davis trailing the loop guy. The only reason he's trailing is because Thompson, who is here, does not come off and disengage to pick it up against Southeastern where Garrett gets sacked. So everybody keeps blaming Weston as an example. Okay, well, we have the projector right here in a coach's copy. That is not on Weston Davis. You pass it off. It's Bryce, I learned that in the 8th grade.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things I learned in the 8th grade. Don't put Axe body spray on your pits, and do not trail the loop guy. So, I mean, come on.
Is your middle school coach available? Is the next question.
Justin Posey's available, yes.
Okay, just need to know. Yeah, just asking for a friend.
He told me that he was going to buy a dog, name it Blake Ruffino, and kick it out of it because that's how angry I make him. I mean, it's just the truth. So Justin Posey, shout out.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things too. I kind of get to this point here, and we end it here. Look, you're going to beat Western Kentucky. Blake, you said this on your show, and I've been trying to say this. South Carolina scares me to death.
Scares me
because if you can't, well, one, Lenore Sellers has quietly been playing better, and we're not talking about it. But
especially from the pocket.
The last thing I'll leave you with is currently, what can this team accomplish, and how far? What can you do? Because outside of, I'll say every single road game you have left, I'm not picking you in the current state of UR, and that's including an 11 a.m. kickoff in Nashville against Vanderbilt.
Mm-hmm.
Arkansas, okay, yeah. I mean, you should win this game because you're at home, but it's like if you can't move the ball, Blake, then you have to throw all of what we think you could do out the window.
Bryce, that's a great question that I just don't have the answer to. I think the ultimate thing that you could strive for would be you get some luck and you're going into Norman, Oklahoma with a chance to make the playoff. That's the best case scenario.
8-2, or 9-2, something like that.
9-2, 8-2, 9-2, whatever it is, and you're finding a way. Maybe defensively, you just had the ball bounce your way. You did some crazy things. Maybe you upset Alabama. You weren't supposed to. Whatever.
Maybe you intercept the ball 5 times. Yeah.
Something crazy happens. Ty Simpson has a day off. What you confuse him? I don't know. Bryce, you're staring 8-4 in the face if you can't move the ball. And so here's the thing. Brian, and I'll leave with this. I know we're leaving, but Brian Kelly used to go through quarterbacks at Notre Dame like I go through Underoos. And you're trying to sit here and tell me that there's not other decisions. He literally pulled Cone before he came to LSU for throwing 2 incompletions in the first drive. He got pulled for Ian Book, then he or vice versa, whichever one it was. And then he comes in and throws a touchdown, then got pulled again because he didn't throw it to the right receiver. And you're supposed to tell me a guy who was 60 at that time, now who's 65 is just more calm? Maybe. But, I mean, I think they're trying to get – if you keep looking like that offensively, there's no other choice.
You're almost self-sabotaging if you don't. You're
self-sabotaging. Listen, let there be 2 bad drives against South Carolina in that stadium at night.
Ooh,
and that bourbon be flowing in October, buddy. It ain't gonna be good. I'm just telling you. I've lived this. I was literally in the building the night that Brandon Harris got booed after his first completion. Got booed, and then they put in Danny Etling, and they almost literally the stadium almost had an earthquake when they put in the backup. I mean, we've seen this before. Brian Kelly's smarter than that. And I got to be real with you. I do think that Brian Kelly, hot take. I think you're going to see something next week from Brian Kelly that we hadn't seen since Florida of last year. I don't think that he's going to let Joe Sloan be. I'm not saying he's going to have a play card, But I have full belief that Joe Sloan's leash is very, very thin and short moving forward.
It's Blake Ruffino, AYS Sports. We appreciate it as always, man. Before we get you out of here, where can people find your content? Not your contact info. We don't need to be putting that out there. But just that and the
anyway.
Yeah, and the also the Ruffino and Joe show, which obviously you guys do a great job. And hey, Tech fans are still mad. They did pull up your show where Brent Key was the wrong hire, by the way, from whenever you guys did that. But you've been giving Tech some love. They're 5-0. Where can people find that?
Well, my ACC runner-up, Georgia Tech. I'm just throwing that out there. Playoff Georgia Tech. Just throwing that out there to regain all this and to get back on the good sides of people of Atlanta. But AYS Sports, Ruffino and Joe show. That's where you can find us 6 p.m., 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And as Dion says, I guess we're not that hard to find.
There we go. Blake Ruffino, we appreciate it as always, man.
Thanks, buddy.